Howdy folks, Aunt Toria here. Today I'm going to be canning up some individual meals. A little bit of chicken soup and some beef stew. Now I have started off all of my pint jars with a heaping quarter teaspoon of salt, but I'm going to wait on the other spices to see how much of each meat makes it into each jar, because I'm going to spice the beef and the chicken a little bit different. As you can see, I have done a lot of chopping in advance. I have the good mirepoix base, which is the start of French cuisine, the onion, carrot, celery mixture, mirepoix, and then I've got some chicken deboned and some beef, all chopped up in chunks there, and some nice gallon size zip top bags that we can wash and reuse. We do like that. So let's get this into some jars. Alrighty now, we've got our beef and our chicken in our pint-sized jars. About a third to a half full, depending on the jar. It's not really specific, it's just sort of guesswork. And I've mashed that down with my fingers to make sure it's smooshed in there just as far as it will go. Now we're going to figure out what spices we're going to put on everything. So we've got our spices out here ready to go. We're going to go with about a half a teaspoon of garlic in all these jars. Garlic's good with beef and chicken both. We sure do love us some garlic. So we're going to do a full half teaspoon in each of these jars. Then go with about a quarter teaspoon for our other spice. About a quarter teaspoon of our black pepper. That should be about 5 or 6 cranks off this jar. And about a quarter teaspoon of some cumin for that beef. And then over for our chicken, we've got our garlic as well as some Italian spices and some turmeric. It's also very good for us. So we're going to go with a quarter teaspoon of everything except for that garlic, and we're going to give us a half teaspoon on that. Got all our good spices in there now. Now you can mix all those spices around the meat so it's on every piece of meat if you like, or you can just leave it right there on top. That's what I usually do. It's sort of the lazy way, but a lot of boiling and flavor mixing going on when you have it in the canner. Now, if you decide you want to go ahead and mix those spices ahead of time, get your handy dandy plastic stick, put your little water in there, and then you can go in there and mix it around your meat real easy like. Give it a good stir up and what have you. Then you get it all mixed in. Alright, let's add the veggies now. There's our celery in. And our carrots in. And our onions in. Now we've gone ahead and topped off these jars with our filtered water. And we take our handy dandy plastic stick. Go all the way around. Make sure we mash all those air bubbles out of there. Just give it a good go through. There we go. Take my clean fingers, kind of mash all this food back down. Just like so. There we go. Now be sure you leave enough headspace inside here between the top of the jar and the top of the liquid around the food. About 1 inch for low acid foods. We've got that meat in there. So that meat is a low acid food and it requires a little more headspace. And we take our paper towel with the vinegar. We go all the way around the top of these jars. Make sure we get all the grease and little bits of food off so we can get a good seal. And we take our lid lifter. Get us the lid out of our warm water. Stick it down on top. And get us a ring. Put our ring down on top. And we want that ring snug but not too tight. Now we got them all lidded up. Let's go get them in the canner. Get your canner ready. A couple inches of water in the bottom. Don't forget that splash of vinegar. Get that bottom plate in there. Put the first row of jars on. Then you get that divider plate in there. Put that next row of jars on. Then you get your lid set on. Remember to line up your little marks depending on what brand and style you have. We've got an arrow and a notch here we line up. We'll get it all snugged up. And you get your heat turned on. Wait for that steam to start coming out. Now we got a good steam going. Need a good 10-minute count, then we'll put our jiggler on. Alrighty. In my area, I need 10 pounds of pressure. So we'll find where this little number 10 is, and we'll stick that right down on the jiggler. There we go. We'll let that needle come up and the jiggler start jiggling, then we can start our time for our cooking. Now we are up to pressure. We get a little jiggle and a little rest, a little jiggle and a little rest, which is where we want it. We will start our timer. Remember, 75 minutes for the meat in these pint jars. When you combine different items, you want to cook for the longest time of the items that you have in there. So we got a lot of veggies and we got meat. Meat takes the longest, so we're going to do the longest time, which is 75 minutes for these pint jars for beef and chicken. Alrighty, now we have finished our time. We're going to go ahead and turn off this flame. Just like that. And then we'll let this cool down all the way to 0. Want that needle all the way back down to 0 before we try to take this lid off. Then we can pull those jars out and set them somewhere safe to cool. Okay, now, got that needle all the way back down to 0. We can go ahead and pull off our little jiggler. It's not steaming. Now it's safe to take the lid off and get those jars out. Now be sure to use your jar lifters because these bottles are still going to be a little warm. Be sure to label them so you know what's in there. But now you've got a heat and eat meal. It's healthy. It's better for you than the store-bought because you know exactly what you put in it. Sure is tasty too. Thanks so much for joining me here today. God bless.